The smell hit me first. Acrid chemical. Like a tire fire having a passionate affair with a burning plastic factory. I'd just pulled up to Pop's house, planning to help him with some gutter cleaning, a thrilling Tuesday morning activity. Then I saw it. Pop's flagpole. The one he saluted every morning was stark naked, and at its base, a pile of smoldering, melted nylon that used to be Old Glory. My grandpa, Sergeant Major Michael Miller, USAF retired, a man who faced down enemy MiGs over Vietnam, was standing on his porch, one hand over his mouth, his shoulders slumped. He looked utterly, completely devastated. And then I saw her. Brenda McLaughlin, our esteemed HOA president, was just turning away from the scene, a small, sickeningly self-satisfied smirk plastered on her face. In her perfectly manicured hand, she clutched a can of what looked suspiciously like Kingsford lighter fluid. No, no way, I breathed. My brain just couldn't compute. She did not just do that. This isn't happening. This is some kind of twisted patriotic fever dream. But the reek of burnt nylon and smug entitlement was all too real. Brenda! My voice started dangerously calm, the kind of calm that precedes a Category 5 hurricane. It escalated quickly. What in the goddamn hell do you think you're doing? She turned, feigning surprise, though the smirk widened into a triumphant beam. Oh, hello, Jacob. Just a little community beautification. That flag, she gestured dismissively with the lighter fluid can towards the charred remains, was a clear violation of HOA Codicil 7, subsection B, paragraph 4. Tattered, faded, and frankly, an eyesore. I issued a warning last Thursday. He had ample time to comply. Pop finally spoke, his voice trembling, cracked with disbelief. My flag. She burned my flag. I was about to launch myself across the lawn. HOA bylaws be damned. Visions of grabbing that lighter fluid can and, well, let's just say my intentions weren't neighborly. Brenda was already launching into a tirade about aesthetic harmony and the sacred duty of the HOA to uphold property values when the universe decided to drop a plot twist of epic proportions. A convoy of immaculate vehicles, 2 gleaming black Suburbans, and a pristine passenger van with government plates pulled up to the curb with the kind of synchronized precision you only see in movies or, well, military operations. Doors opened in unison, and out stepped a full contingent of the base honor guard. I counted 6 of them, crisp blue uniforms, white gloves, mirror-shined shoes, stoic expressions, moving with a purpose that made Brenda's power walking look like a drunken stagger. They formed up, a perfect line, facing Pop's house. Brenda froze mid-sentence, her lecture on the proper disposal of non-compliant decorative items dying on her lips. The lighter fluid can hung limply in her hand. Her jaw, which had been flapping like a loose shutter in a gale, was now agape. Pop looked utterly bewildered, his gaze shifting from the smoldering flag to the honor guard and back again. I was just stunned. My anger, for a split second, was short-circuited by sheer, unadulterated shock. 3 minutes, I whispered to myself. I'd glanced at my watch when I first smelled the smoke. It couldn't have been more than 3 minutes since she lit that match. Brenda, recovering slightly, puffed herself up. Who are they? She demanded, her voice a confused squawk. Are you having some kind of event, Sergeant Major? You didn't clear it with the HOA. All gatherings of more than 4 individuals require prior written approval. The lead honor guard officer, a captain with sharp features and eyes that could probably freeze hell over, Captain Ava Rostova, according to her name tag, ignored Brenda as if she were a mildly annoying garden gnome. She stepped forward, her movements economical and precise, and addressed Pop with utmost respect, her voice clear and carrying. "Sergeant Major Miller, sir. We're a little early for the ceremony, but we're ready when you are." Pop blinked. "Ceremony?" I echoed him, my mind reeling. "Ceremony? What ceremony? And how in the ever-loving blue blazes did they get here faster than a pizza delivery on a Tuesday night with a police escort?" The air crackled. Captain Rostova stood at ease, a silent sentinel, while her team remained a stoic, blue wall of impending something. Brenda, momentarily silenced by the sheer unexpectedness of it all, was starting to sputter again, her face turning a rather fetching shade of puce that clashed horribly with her salmon-pink jogging suit. Pop just looked lost, his hand still covering his mouth. My mind, trying to make sense of the scene, flashed back. Brenda McLaughlin's reign of HOA terror hadn't started with flag arson. Oh no, she'd worked her way up to that particular felony. It began subtly, as all true evil does. Passive-aggressive notes about Pop's perfectly manicured lawn being inconsistent with approved turf heights by approximately 1/8 of an inch. Then it was the bird feeder Pop had put up after Grandma Rose passed, a small, cheerful thing that brought him a bit of joy. "Attracts vermin and contributes to an unsanitary neighborhood environment," Brenda had scrawled on an official-looking violation notice, complete with a grainy, zoomed-in photo of a sparrow. Pop, a man who'd faced down enemy fire in Khe Sanh with more courage than most people could muster to parallel park, took it all with a quiet, weary dignity. But I could see it wore him down. He loved this house, this little patch of green. He'd retired here after Grandma Rose was gone, wanting peace, a quiet place to read his history books and tend his roses. What he got was Hurricane Brenda and her legion of nonsensical bylaws. The flag, though. The flag was her Mount Everest of petty grievances. Pop flew it every day, from sunrise to sunset, a ritual as ingrained in him as his morning coffee and the evening news. It was old, I'll give her that. It was the flag he'd been presented with at his Air Force retirement ceremony after 30 years of service. It was faded by the sun, whipped by the wind, but he mended every small tear, replaced the halyard himself, and treated it with a reverence that choked me up sometimes. Brenda, of course, saw none of that. She saw unsightly, non-compliant with approved outdoor decorative element standards, and, according to her last typed warning, a potential source of visual pollution that negatively impacts curb appeal and, by extension, community property values. Pop had just quietly folded that last notice, the one threatening fines, and put it in the kitchen bin. And just yesterday, I muttered to myself, the pieces clicking into place with horrible clarity. Sal and Vinny finished installing the new flagpole. Taller, sturdier, gleaming white, ready for the brand new, perfectly regulation-sized flag Pop had ordered online. Brenda must have seen them working. She must have seen that beautiful new pole go up. Maybe that's what finally pushed her over her meticulously landscaped edge. The thought of Pop continuing to fly any flag, let alone a new one on an even more prominent pole, must have been too much for her tiny, tyrannical heart to bear. Just as Brenda was winding up to deliver what I assumed would be a scathing lecture to Captain Rostova on the unauthorized assembly of military personnel on common HOA land, the wail of sirens cut through the morning air. Finally. Someone, a neighbor, or maybe it was me in my initial blind rage before the honor guard's miraculous appearance, I honestly couldn't remember, had called 911. A couple of local police officers, Krumitz and Diaz, rolled up, their patrol car's lights adding another layer of surrealism to the already bizarre tableau. Officer Krumitz, young, earnest, with a haircut you could set your watch by, looked like he'd just stepped off a recruitment poster. Officer Diaz, older, with a weary mustache, and eyes that had clearly seen the full spectrum of human stupidity, and then some, looked like he desperately needed a very large coffee and an early retirement. They took one look at the smoldering pile at the base of the flagpole, Pop's devastated face, Brenda clutching her can of lighter fluid like a bizarre Olympic torch, the ramrod straight honor guard, and then me, probably looking like I was about to spontaneously combust. "Okay, what in the Sam Hill is going on here?" Officer Krumitz asked, his hand hovering near his radio, probably debating whether to call for backup, a SWAT team, or possibly an exorcist. "We got a call about a fire, possible assault." "She did it!" I yelled, jabbing an accusing finger at Brenda, my earlier shock giving way to a fresh surge of fury. Brenda McLaughlin, that woman. She burned my grandpa's American flag right there. I saw her. Brenda, galvanized by the arrival of a new audience she clearly felt was more on her level than a bunch of stoic military types, puffed herself up. "Officer, this is a gross mischaracterization of events," she declared, her voice regaining its familiar, shrill, commanding tone. "I was merely disposing of an unauthorized and unsightly item in strict accordance with HOA regulations, Codicil 7, subsection B, paragraph 4, to be precise. This man," she gestured disdainfully towards me, "is being hysterical and verbally abusive. And these soldiers," she waved a dismissive hand at the honor guard, "are trespassing on community property and creating a disturbance." Captain Rostova, without even glancing at Brenda, addressed Officer Diaz calmly. "We are here on official business with Sergeant Major Miller, officer. This was a prearranged visit." Officer Diaz, who seemed to be the more seasoned of the two cops, raised a skeptical eyebrow at Brenda. "Ma'am, disposing of an item with fire in someone's front yard, especially an American flag, is generally frowned upon by most civilized societies. And, call me crazy, potentially a felony. You got those HOA regulations with you? The ones that specifically state you can commit arson in the name of aesthetic harmony?" The cops, bless their blue cotton socks, started trying to take statements. It was like herding caffeinated cats. Brenda, of course, tried to wave her laminated HOA binder around, quoting obscure rules about the approved Pantone colors for mailbox flags and the maximum allowable height for garden gnomes. Pop, his voice still thick with pain, but his military bearings slowly returning, explained what happened, aided by my occasional furious interjections. The honor guard, to their eternal credit, remained stoically professional, a silent, intimidating blue backdrop to Brenda's increasingly unhinged monologue. Just then, Sal and Vinny, the contractors I'd hired to install Pop's new flagpole, pulled up in their beat-up work truck. They were supposed to do some final cleanup around the base and make sure the concrete had set perfectly. They stopped dead in their tracks, their eyes widening as they took in the scene. The cops, the honor guard, the smoldering mess, and Brenda in full Karen meltdown mode. Sal, a big guy with a laugh that could shake rafters, let out a low whistle. "Whoa, did we miss the block party? Or is this just how Tuesday mornings roll in this neighborhood now?" he asked Vinny, though it was loud enough for the cops to hear. Officer Krumitz, ever diligent, turned to them. "You gentlemen know anything about this situation?" Vinny, always the more talkative of the two, leaned out the truck window. "Well, officer, we just put in that new flagpole for the sergeant major yesterday. Finished up late afternoon. Old Glory was flying proud and looking mighty fine when we left, I can tell you that. That Brenda lady, though." He shook his head, a smirk playing on his lips. "She was giving us the stink eye the whole time we were working. Kept muttering about unapproved installations and structural integrity concerns." Sal chimed in. "Yeah, she even asked if we had a permit from the HOA Architectural Review Committee to plant a pole for an American flag on a combat veteran's property. Seemed a bit much, even for an HOA president, if you ask me. He shrugged. Told her our permit was common sense and a little thing called the First Amendment, but I don't think she appreciated the legal critique. Brenda shot them a look that could curdle milk. Your unprofessional conduct has been duly noted and will be reported to the Better Business Bureau, she shrieked. Officer Diaz sighed so heavily I thought his mustache might blow off. Ma'am, perhaps you should focus on the current set of rapidly escalating problems you have right here, right now. While Officer Krumitz was valiantly trying to get a coherent statement from Brenda, who was now cycling through indignation, victimhood, and threatening to call her lawyer, who was apparently also her cousin and specialized in slip-and-fall cases, and Officer Diaz was patiently listening to Pop, I saw my chance. I sidled up to Captain Rostova, who was observing the proceedings with an air of detached, military calm. Captain, I said, keeping my voice low. With all due respect, and believe me, a lot of respect is due right now. What ceremony were you talking about? And seriously, how did you and your team get here so fast? Did Pop call you? Did he have some kind of patriotic bat signal? Captain Rostova actually allowed the faintest hint of a smile to touch her lips. It was a fleeting thing, there and gone, but I saw it. Sergeant Major Miller is a recipient of this year's Service and Valor Commendation from the Base Command, Mr. Vance, she explained, her voice a model of professional discretion. A small delegation, including the base commander himself, Brigadier General Armstrong, was scheduled to present the commendation to him here, at his home, at precisely 0900 hours. We, the Honor Guard, were tasked with performing a flag-folding ceremony for his old, retiring flag and then raising his new one on the new flagpole. She glanced at her impeccably synchronized watch. We arrived on station at 0853. We pride ourselves on our punctuality and operational readiness. My jaw must have hit the freshly cut grass. He never said a word, not a peep. A commendation, today? From the base commander. Pop. The man who could recount entire battle strategies with pinpoint accuracy had somehow neglected to mention this rather significant upcoming event. He's a humble man, sir, Captain Rostova said, a flicker of genuine warmth in her eyes. The official request from his end was for a very low-key private presentation. No fuss. It seems, she added, her gaze flicking briefly towards Brenda, who was now attempting to explain to Officer Krumitz that the smoke was actually a form of olfactory protest against Pop's aggressive patriotism. That Mrs. McLaughlin had other plans for the morning's agenda. The irony? Oh, the sweet, delicious, grade-A irony of it all. Brenda, in her infinite HOA wisdom, had chosen the worst possible moment in the entire history of bad moments for her act of pyro-political commentary. The base commander was literally on his way to honor the man whose flag she'd just turned into a puddle of molten goo. You couldn't write this stuff. Brenda, oblivious to the cosmic joke she had become, was now digging her hole deeper, trying to explain to a rapidly exasperating Officer Diaz that the flag burning was actually a public service, and that Pop, with his flagrant disregard for established community standards and visual harmony, was the one creating a hostile and aesthetically displeasing living environment. She then had the audacity to demand that the Honor Guard leave the premises immediately, as their overtly militaristic presence was intimidating and not conducive to a tranquil suburban atmosphere. "Militant paraphernalia, ma'am?" Officer Diaz asked, pinching the bridge of his nose so hard I thought he might leave a dent. "You mean the American flag? Being flown by a decorated combat veteran? On his own damn property? On the day he's about to be honored by a general?" He took a very deep, very audible breath. "Okay, folks, Let's just all try to remain calm and rational here, shall we? Too late for that, officer. Way, way too late. As if summoned by the sheer escalating absurdity of the situation, another official-looking black car, even shinier and more imposing than the Honor Guard's Suburbans, pulled smoothly to the curb. The American flag and a one-star flag fluttered from its front fenders. Out stepped a figure who radiated authority like a personal force field. Brigadier General Armstrong, the base commander. He was tall, ramrod straight, with a chest full of ribbons that told a story of a long and distinguished career, and a face that looked like it had been carved from granite by a particularly no-nonsense sculptor. He took in the scene in one sweeping, practiced gaze. The smoldering remains of the flag, Pop's anguished face, Brenda's apoplectic one, the local police officers looking increasingly stressed, and his own impeccably assembled honor guard. His expression didn't change, but I could almost feel the temperature drop by 10 degrees. Captain Rostova. General Armstrong's voice wasn't a shout, but it rolled across the lawn like tactical thunder, cutting through Brenda's latest whine about HOA sovereignty. Report! What is the meaning of this circus? Captain Rostova snapped to attention so sharply I thought her spine might audibly click. General, sir, she barked, her voice a model of military precision. Honor Guard arrived on station at 0853 hours for the scheduled commendation ceremony for Sergeant Major Miller. We found this situation actively in progress, sir. She gestured with a subtle, almost imperceptible flick of her white-gloved hand towards Brenda, who was now clutching her HOA binder to her chest like a shield, and the charred, pathetic remains of Pop's flag. Officer Diaz, to his credit, stepped up and addressed the general respectfully, if a little nervously. General, sir, Officers Krumitz and Diaz, local PD. We're currently investigating an incident of destruction of private property and potential arson. This lady, Mrs. McLaughlin, he indicated Brenda, admits to burning Sergeant Major Miller's American flag. Brenda, who might have felt some residual flicker of power when dealing with local cops, or even a mere captain, visibly wilted under the direct, unblinking gaze of a one-star general. The HOA binder suddenly seemed to offer very little in the way of actual protection. The can of lighter fluid, which Officer Krumitz had carefully bagged as evidence but was still visible on the hood of his cruiser, suddenly seemed like a very, very bad life choice. General Armstrong ignored Brenda entirely for the moment, his stern expression softening almost imperceptibly as he approached Pop. He extended a hand. Sergeant Major Miller, I am profoundly sorry you've had to endure this outrageous display this morning. This is unacceptable, and it will be addressed. Believe me. Pop, his own military training kicking in, straightened up, his shoulders squaring despite the obvious pain in his eyes. He took the general's hand. General Armstrong, thank you for coming, sir. Your timing is noted. A ghost of a smile played on his lips. Then the general turned. Slowly, deliberately. He fixed his gaze on Brenda McLaughlin. His voice, when he spoke, was quiet, almost conversational, but it carried the terrifying weight of command and a deeply offended sense of propriety. Ma'am, he began, his eyes like chips of ice. I understand you are the president of this homeowners association? Brenda swallowed audibly. Her face was now the color of spoiled mayonnaise. Yes, General, she stammered, her voice barely a squeak. Brenda McLaughlin, there are rules, and the flag was non-compliant. The flag, madam, General Armstrong interrupted, his voice still quiet but laced with cold fury, was a symbol of the service, the sacrifice, and the unwavering dedication this man, Sergeant Major Michael Miller, and countless others like him have given to this nation. The very nation that grants you the freedom to have your rules. He took a step closer, and Brenda involuntarily took a step back, nearly tripping over one of her own aesthetically approved, low-profile lawn sprinklers. What you have done here this morning is not just an insult to a decorated war hero. It is an insult to every man and woman who has ever worn the uniform of the United States Armed Forces. It is, frankly, madam, disgusting, and I assure you it will not go unnoticed. Brenda was now visibly trembling. The can of lighter fluid, if she'd still been holding it, would have been dancing a jig. Her reign of terror, built on the flimsy foundation of bylaws and bluster, was crumbling before her very eyes under the steely gaze of a man who commanded far more than a suburban cul-de-sac. General Armstrong conferred briefly with Captain Rostova and Officer Diaz, his voice low, but his instructions clearly decisive. The air hummed with a new kind of tension, the tension of imminent, righteous action. "Officer Diaz," the general said, his gaze unwavering. "Please proceed with your investigation and appropriate actions regarding Mrs. McLaughlin's conduct. Captain Rostova, we will proceed with Sergeant Major Miller's commendation ceremony and the flag ceremony as planned. This community, and Mrs. McLaughlin in particular, needs to witness what true respect for that flag, and for the men and women who defend it, actually looks like." And just like that, the script flipped. The honor guard moved with the fluid precision of a well-oiled machine. Two of them, at a nod from Captain Rostova, retrieved the new American flag Pop had. I'd brought it out from his garage earlier, still in its pristine triangular fold, as Pop had been hoping Sal and Vinny could raise it on the new pole once they were done. It felt like a small beacon of hope in the morning's madness. Sal and Vinny, who had been watching the entire drama unfold with expressions ranging from slack-jawed disbelief to outright awe, suddenly found themselves part of the official proceedings. "Contractors," Captain Rostova's voice cut through the air. "Is that new flagpole fully installed and ready for use?" Sal, who once told me he'd considered joining the Marines before he found his calling in construction, snapped to what looked suspiciously like attention. "Yes, ma'am, Captain. Strong and true, ma'am. Set in 300 pounds of quick-set concrete. She ain't going nowhere." And so, the most surreal, most improvised, and yet most profoundly moving flag-raising ceremony I had ever witnessed began. Right there, on Pop's front lawn, with the charred remains of his old flag bearing silent witness, and with Brenda McLaughlin watching her world unravel. One of the honor guard members produced a ceremonial bugle. I swear, they must have an app for everything, or just be prepared for anything. And the clear, mournful notes of "To the Colors" filled the morning air. Neighbors, drawn by the official vehicles, the earlier commotion, and now the unmistakable sound of military ceremony, began to gather silently along the sidewalk, their faces a mixture of curiosity, shock, and dawning respect. As the new stars and stripes ascended smoothly up that gleaming white pole, catching the morning breeze, a collective lump formed in what felt like every throat on the block. The contrast was stark. The vibrant, unblemished new flag soaring skyward, a symbol of resilience and honor, while just a few feet away, Brenda McLaughlin, the architect of the morning's desecration, was being quietly but firmly read her Miranda rights by Officer Krumitz. "Brenda McLaughlin, you have the right to remain silent," Krumitz recited, his voice professional, but with an undertone that suggested he was savoring this moment just a little. "Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. You have the right to an attorney." Brenda wasn't screeching now. She was white-faced, slack-jawed, the fight completely drained out of her. The HOA binder lay forgotten on her lawn, its pages fluttering in the breeze like surrender flags. Her reign was over. Then, With the new flag flying proudly, General Armstrong stepped forward to honor Pop. He spoke in a clear, strong voice, his words carrying across the assembled crowd. He spoke of Pop's bravery during 3 tours in Vietnam, of his leadership, his decades of unwavering service, his quiet patriotism that sought no reward but found it anyway. He then pinned the service and valor commendation onto Pop's chest. Pop stood tall, his eyes glistening, but his back was ramrod straight, a silent testament to the spirit Brenda had tried and failed to extinguish. I felt a surge of pride so intense it almost buckled my knees. My grandpa. My hero. The neighbors, even the ones who had previously grumbled about Pop's old-fashioned ways or secretly sided with Brenda's campaign for aesthetic conformity, were silent, many dabbing their eyes. Some even began to applaud. A soft ripple at first, then growing stronger. A spontaneous tribute to a man they were only just beginning to truly see. Brenda, cuffed and looking utterly defeated, was led to Officer Diaz's patrol car. She didn't even look back. As quickly as they had appeared, the official vehicles began to depart. General Armstrong offered a final, crisp salute to Pop, and a firm handshake to me, then was gone. The honor guard, after one last, perfect salute to the newly raised flag, followed. But before they left, Captain Rostova approached Pop. She and 2 of her team members had respectfully, almost reverently, collected the charred, melted remains of Pop's old flag. "Sergeant Major," she said, her voice softened with genuine empathy, "we will ensure your flag is retired with full military honors at the base. It deserves nothing less." Pop, his voice thick with emotion, could only nod, clutching the box containing his commendation. "Thank you, Captain. Thank you all." The local cops finished their on-scene investigation, took a few more statements from bewildered neighbors, and then they too were gone, taking a very subdued Brenda McLaughlin with them, leaving just me, Pop, Sal, Vinny, and a front lawn that had witnessed more drama in 3 hours than it had in the past 30 years. "Pop," I said, finally letting out a breath I didn't realize I'd been holding, Are you okay? That was a lot, even for a Tuesday." Pop looked up at his new flag, fluttering proudly against the clear blue sky. He touched the commendation pinned to his shirt. A slow smile, the first genuine one I'd seen from him all morning, spread across his face. "They shouldn't have... Brenda, she shouldn't have done that to Old Glory." He paused, his gaze distant for a moment. Then he looked at me. "But it was good to see the colors fly right again, son, real good." He reached out and clutched my arm, his grip surprisingly strong. "Thank you for being here, Jake, and for being you." Sal and Vinny, who had been trying to look busy coiling up a non-existent extension cord, finally ambled over, still shaking their heads in disbelief. Vinny let out a low whistle. "Well, that's one for the books, I tell you. Never had a flagpole installation that came with a live-action arrest, a full military honor guard, and a visiting general before. Gonna be mighty hard to top that experience on the next job." Sal chuckled, a deep rumble in his chest. "You think she'll make bail? Or will they make her recite the entire U.S. flag code backwards as punishment?" "With her attitude?" I said, a grin finally breaking through my own stress. "I hope they make her scrub the base latrines with a toothbrush engraved with the HOA bylaws." News of Brenda McLaughlin's spectacular flameout, pun absolutely intended, traveled through the neighborhood and then the wider community with the speed of a viral cat video. She was charged with arson, vandalism, and, depending on how the DA felt that day, possibly a few other creative offenses like felony stupidity and aggravated abuse of an HOA presidency. The HOA board, in a hastily convened emergency meeting, from which Brenda was conspicuously absent, being otherwise engaged with the concept of bail, stripped her of her presidency and all committee memberships. There was even talk of the HOA itself suing her for bringing the community into disrepute and potentially devaluing property with her headline-grabbing antics. Her attempts to use HOA funds for her undoubtedly expensive legal defense were, I heard, soundly and unanimously rejected. The local news website ran a story with the headline, HOA President Arrested for Burning Veterans Flag Military Ceremony Proceeds Amidst Ashes. It included a very unflattering photo of Brenda, mid-rant, looking like a startled banshee. She was, to put it mildly, toast. The incident, as horrific as its catalyst had been, had a strange, almost cleansing effect on the neighborhood. There was a new, palpable respect for Pop. People who had previously only offered a curt nod now stopped by to congratulate him on his commendation, to sincerely apologize for Brenda's actions, or just to offer to help with his yard work, which was, of course, now perfectly safe from Brenda's tyrannical rule book. The HOA, under new, considerably more sane leadership, Mrs. Henderson from down the street, who grew prize-winning roses and believed in live and let live, actually began to dismantle some of Brenda's more ludicrous and universally despised rules. There was even talk of a community barbecue to celebrate neighborhood harmony and common sense. Pop's house, once a target for Brenda's endless stream of violation notices, became a quiet symbol of resilience and respect. He continued his daily flag ritual with his new, vibrant flag. But now, neighbors often paused as they walked by. Some would offer a nod, a smile. A few of the younger kids, seeing their parents do it, even started placing their hands over their hearts. It was a small thing, but it felt huge. A few weeks later, I was back at Pop's, sharing an iced tea with him on the front porch. It was a beautiful afternoon. The new flag flew proudly, its colors bright against the azure sky. Sal and Vinny were there too. They'd come by to install a new, state-of-the-art security camera system that I'd insisted Pop needed. They'd done it completely free of charge. "Consider it a thank you for the show, Pop," Sal had said with a wink. "And for your service and all that." We were watching the saved footage from that infamous Tuesday morning on Vinny's tablet, specifically the part where Brenda realized General Armstrong was not, in fact, there to admire her petunias. We were all chuckling. Vinny wiped a tear of mirth from his eye. "Still can't believe she thought that can of lighter fluid was a good idea. And her timing. Right when the cavalry was literally pulling up to the curb, sirens blaring in her honor." Sal shook his head, still marveling. "Some people, Vinny, they just got a special kind of stupid. The kind that makes for truly great stories, though. And instant karma." Pop, who had been watching the replay with a faint, reminiscent smile, took a sip of his tea. "Well," he said, his voice calm and steady, "it certainly made for an eventful Tuesday morning. Didn't think these old bones would see that kind of concentrated action again outside of a History Channel documentary." I raised my glass of iced tea. "To Pop," I said, "to the flag, and to HOAs everywhere learning a little something crucial about picking their battles, and maybe reading the room before they play with fire." I looked at the flag, then at Pop, his face serene in the afternoon sun. "Yeah," I said, a wide grin spreading across my face. "Some days start with an inferno, Pop. But man, oh man, some days end with a 5-star full-dress honor guard finish." And, as I looked at my grandpa, a true American hero, finally enjoying the peace he so richly deserved, I thought that while the world definitely has its share of Brenda McLaughlins, it also, thankfully, has its Sergeant Major Millers, its Captain Rostovas, its General Armstrongs, and even its Sal's and Vinny's everyday good guys who show up, do the right thing, and remind you that sometimes, just sometimes, justice isn't only served, it's delivered with full military honors and a side of truly epic, ironically hilarious, and deeply satisfying humiliation for those who truly, truly deserve it. And that, my friends, is a beautiful thing.